Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are live for a special episode of The Build, and I am so happy and I'm honored to have a special guest with us tonight. We're really going to be focusing on what is really kind of going on in the current climate socially and on your media. As we know, with some of the situations with law enforcement and citizens and you know some of what it is that we are seeing, just to kind of get a better understanding of the other side of that coin. A lot of times a lot of times mainstream media, and social media will come out and really, play to the emotions of the situation and not accurately offer a narrative that depicts, all the facts within the situation. And so today we are here and we are honored to have a special guest. Former New Jersey Police Sergeant Corey Jones. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Thank you, and I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be here with you, and I hope that together we can tackle some of these issues.
Excellent, thank you. So, Corey, I want to get right into it. Again, I appreciate your time. For everybody out there, Corey Jones is a former New Jersey Police Sergeant. He's also served on the SWAT team. We can get in that a little bit because I'm interested in that. But Corey is also the expert analyst that is typically called in for ABC, NBC, Fox 29, and he also operates Safety Man Consulting. Corey, I'll let you explain a little bit about what Safety Man Consulting is, because there may be some viewers out there that are interested in reaching out.
Thank you for that. Definitely, I appreciate that. With Safety Man Consulting, the website is really easy, safetyman.co by Corey, safetyman.co. And as a retired police officer, I was blessed and fortunate to build a skill set where I trained officers and civilians how to keep themselves safe. So now I take that skill set and I'll specifically train law enforcement agencies in de-escalation. I'll train law enforcement agencies in less lethal and non-lethal technology, and also how to make agencies better on the range with their firearms. I also train private citizens, first-time gun owners, or people who've had weapons for a long time, make them legal, moral, and practical, and how they use that firearm. And finally, I train businesses, organizations, houses of worship, and how to prevent, handle, and recover from an active shooter or any type of crisis. So again, my whole goal at safetyman.co is to keep everyone safe.
Thank you for that, Corey. We appreciate that and appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. You come highly recommended. So I'm ready to kind of get into everything. I call it all the muck that we're really seeing right now. It's really dividing a nation in a sense. And I think over the course of really the last 2 years, it's really been escalated in terms of how they are, pandering to people's emotions, really without the full scope of the facts. And so that's why I have you here. And I guess I'll lead with the first question. In terms of myself personally, I do a lot of work in the community. Okay. And when I mean the community, that's a lot of the word we're using now is disenfranchised. But, a lot of the Black community, a lot of the urban communities that, are typically your high crime areas. And, one of the biggest beefs that I always tell people when we are encountered with one or two clips of a police shooting, is I'll point to the 700 more homicides that took place during the year that were Black on Black. Now, that's not taking any emphasis off of the incident that happened with law enforcement, but it's that dual accountability that I keep driving home, and the same protests and the same marching and the same voice that people want illuminated in terms of the oppression that they feel is going on with police officers. I would like that same energy placed on each block in each neighborhood, because we just lost a 2-year-old kid in Philadelphia. There was a 13-year-old kid, that was out at 3 a.m. in the morning, that had a situation with police. And I can't even tell you, I just looked at the number. I believe it was over 50 homicides in Philadelphia was under the age of 17. So, for the audience out there, can you help me, just kind of understand why we're not, seeing that dual accountability there more so than we should be?
Sure, you touched on it initially, I think, is when you said that the media wants that narrative and they want that headline. And, medical mistakes kill way more people than homicides, car crashes, or anything else combined, even more every year. And you don't see anybody standing in front of any hospital. So, they have a high standard. Law enforcement, if we get involved in the use of force that ends with a severe injury, death, and or it's captured on video, we're held to a higher standard too. So we should be accountable to that. However, as you said, it has to be in perspective of what's going on. There has to be the perspective of why did this subject end up 5 feet away from the officer in a confrontational situation. Again, having done 27 years of law enforcement, very rarely would I ever walk up to somebody and just start a confrontation if I didn't have somebody telling me, officer, that's the person who did it. Or my radio was saying he or she fits the description of somebody that's wanted, or that person was acting suspiciously. So there's always a little bit more to the interaction between the police and the suspect or the citizen that needs to be told for the entire story. Like that 13-year-old you mentioned, why is he out at 3 a.m. carrying a firearm? And why is his first reaction to run from the police when instead, just taking a responsibility for his act?
You have a delay on Mr. Jones's end. Can you hear me okay, Corey?
I still have you, sir.
Okay, great. I apologize.
Yes,
Well, at least on my end, it flashed. Ladies, I'm going to pass it over to you because I know we were discussing this for weeks and weeks and weeks, kind of behind the scenes on how we really wanted to approach this conversation. You know what I mean? Really just having both sides of the coin being discussed. I mean, we know what the community's saying, but we also, you know what I mean? Two of us, we work in government, so we also kind of understand that, policy and procedure. So First Lady E, I'll pass it to you. Do you have it? Do you have any insight or question?
I do have a question. Going back to accountability that you just mentioned. I know in law enforcement there's a code. They have a code. So my thought is our officers, because you guys are held to a higher standard, are they really being held accountable as much as they should, or is it more often brushed under the rug?
That's a fair question. I would say that as time has, in the past 10 years, we've really been held much more accountable as we're supposed to be. With the advent of car cameras in the early 90s, and then now to the body-worn cameras that we see made a big surge forward after Ferguson, being held to a much higher standard. And there's a lot of things that happen. One is, when I was an active police officer and I would go to parties, I would hate to hear the stories of how Officer X from Agency Y acted unprofessionally. It would actually burn my soul because I was proud of my profession. So that's why I took a lot of the jobs that I did in law enforcement to make officers better, to use verbal de-escalation, use the minimum amount of force when necessary, to be professional, to treat people with dignity and respect. But to your specific point, we've been forced to be held to a higher standard because things are captured on body camera and because people are challenging us more civilly and looking for those big payouts. So by having our I's dotted and our T's crossed much more, it makes it harder for someone to get a cash settlement from an agency. So let's just put aside the fact that we want to do things right. Everybody's run by deep pockets and everybody wants to keep that bottom line as low as possible. So my manager says, this officer's a problem child. We're either going to train him and fix him, or we're going to work to get him out of here because, again, it's not professional and it doesn't help us with our bottom line.
That was a great point. I didn't think about it like that.
Humble Just, I'm going to pass it down to you.
So Corey, once again, thanks for coming on with us. My main question was, it leads to the aspect of community and the officers that are policing these communities, what type of interactions are are we seeing? And is there like more or less, is there a bridge being built between the community and the officers? Is there somebody that's building that bridge, like a community board, or somebody that's working to get interactions between police and the citizens they serve and protect? They're working to get some type of better communication as to how they can be better in the area and help them out. I want to know, is that something that you've seen, and if that's something we can say needs to be a thing in other communities around the country?
I'm a big believer in community policing. Actually, back in 1991, when I started my career, I was hired under a Safe Streets grant, which funded 2 officers to go into community policing. So with that, we came off the street. We were not considered shift strength. We went to town watch, neighborhood watch meetings. We would go and help senior citizens secure their homes. If somebody had a break-in, we would go to their home and give them firsthand advice on how to prevent that from happening again. We had this giant motorhome. It was called the MEOC, the Mobile Educational Outreach Center. We would take it into neighborhoods. We would set out. We'd have big officer dressed up in a big McGruff crime dog. And this is back in 1994 and 1995. So only the rookie had to wear that thing because it was hot in there. And even back then, we're going out shaking hands and kissing babies and giving stickers and pizza for wearing your bike helmet, all those different things. The town that I live in now, which is one town over, same thing. You see them on the Facebook, on social media every day, seeing the kids riding their bikes, they're wearing a helmet, to give them free ice cream, to give them free pizza, and you're seeing a lot of the larger agencies doing that. You know, and that I believe that is helpful, because I want that young boy or girl who's 10, 11 to have a positive image, a positive interaction, and a positive memory of seeing the police, and not just what the media is telling him or her about law enforcement. So I do believe community policing is huge. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. I just think we need to actually make it so every officer is responsible for community policing, not just a specific group of 4 or 5 officers, but that every officer throughout his or her shift should have a couple areas, maybe a school, a house of worship, a neighborhood that they should check in face to face, get out of the car, get off the bike, get off the motorcycle, shake hands with somebody and say, hey, how you doing? Remember me? I'm Corey. Want to make sure the neighborhood's okay. Any problems you want to let me know of, or just stand there and have, you know, a cold soda with the person. And I don't want to keep going, but it's important. When Camden switched, they put a lot of officers on the street. One of the officers there left that agency and came to our agency. And I was talking to him. I said, tell me about that. And he said, Corey, the shop owners there loved us walking the beat. He said, there's some shop owners that wouldn't let us leave, that we would come in and they would give us a soda. They'd give us another soda. He said this one bodega would make these awesome beans and rice dishes. And he says, you'd eat so much you couldn't walk afterwards, so you just stay there. So they loved it. So the community policing aspect in Camden Metro that they're doing is definitely helpful.
Aaron, I think you
Aaron,
muted.
your mic.
Of course, my mic was muted. No, I do a lot of work in Camden on the government side, and I can echo what you're saying. I know, you know, that was appreciative, seeing more people out there. A lot of people are, you know, now going in there into the city and opening up, you know what I mean, obtaining their LLC and opening up businesses there, because they know they have that, you know, new form of neighborhood watch there, as you call it, walking the beat. Miss Cheddar B, Mama of the Year. This is awesome. I love that. I love what I'm seeing right now.
He just wanted me.
It's nothing wrong with that. So I know you and I have talked before, and this is kind of a good segue into current events. We have the Kim Potter situation. We have the gentleman down in Virginia, the Army vet, and I know we kind of wanted to get into that. Did you want to touch on any of them, or have a question that you came up with?
I did want to speak on what he was just talking about real quick with the being in the community and stuff, because I know that at one point, so where I live on Will Turn, it's not the best area of Mount Laurel. So I saw a bunch of officers come, into the neighborhood or whatever. And of course, I'm out the window like, what they about to do? Who they about to arrest? And they just came out there to actually play basketball with the kids in the neighborhood. And my son was like, oh, I want to go out there and play with the cops. And I was like, wow, okay, that was really nice. Because at first I thought, there's some drama going down. I think that's one of the things a lot of people think as soon as they see a cop, something's about to go down, or somebody's, you know, and they're not thinking that they're just here to hang out or they're just here to, you know, check on people. I think if they did more of that, like you said, there wouldn't be so much fear and tension, really, because like I said, that was my go-to reaction, was to see what was about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they was just about to hang out with the kids, and that was nice. But I do have a question about the Dante Wright situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a normal mistake to make, 20 plus years on the force, to mistake your taser for a gun and use it?
It's a tragedy. It's terrible. I feel horrible for everybody involved in there. You know, it's just terrible. It's terrible. As a taser instructor, New Jersey was the last state in the country to allow tasers for their officers. New Jersey was very nervous. The Attorney General's office was very nervous. Wanted to make sure that when we implemented it, we were going to implement it right and put it on the force continuum where it wasn't being used for really, really low levels of passive resistance. So they put it on the force continuum really high, which meant that when you were drawing a taser in New Jersey, it was almost the same fear that you were under that you would be drawing your firearm. So I was one of the initial taser instructors in the state of New Jersey. When they rolled it out, I was in the first class for the first instructors. And I saw this exact incident as being a problem. So I made the taser only used with the support hand, never your gun hand. So anytime you're pulling a trigger with your gun hand, it's for a gun. If you're pulling a trigger with your support hand, it's for a taser. Now, just looking at a short clip of that video, it appears that they carry their taser on the support side, and it's called a cross draw. So the gun hand comes across their body, draws the taser back out, and now they're doing that same motion, which to me, it minimizes, but it doesn't completely mitigate the likelihood that you could have a mistaken weapon choice under stress. So now you take into account a 26-year veteran who, I know in my 25th year, I wasn't on the street as much. In my last couple of months, I was inside. They were just kind of winding me down, finishing up my paperwork. So if you don't train all the time on what you're going to draw under stress, you'll default to something that could be wrong. So when I changed everybody in my agency and a lot of people in the county to use only their support hand for the taser, we made them do several hundred repetitions so they can make that automatic with that. But it has happened before. I think there's maybe 9 or 10 instances across America where officers have mistakenly drawn a handgun when they thought they were going to draw a taser. And to me, it's unacceptable. It's something that's really easily trained. You just have to take the time to do it.
So do you think when you were when you had that opportunity to watch that video, and then after you watch it, was your takeaway that was poor training? Was there some type of negligence by the officer in that situation? I know, Corey, just me watching it, and surfing around the details, I knew that the individual would have been deemed as a violent criminal because I believe there was some weapon charges there. So that is something to keep in mind. I did have opportunity to watch it. I did see him jump back into the vehicle, and I try to always put myself in this situation. And, well, not jokingly, but if I would have saw that, I'm not sure I would have went for the taser if I was a cop and I knew someone was going in the vehicle and possibly could have been grabbing a weapon. But then again, I'm not under any SOP, any standard operating procedure. Just your initial kind of takeaway from that, would you have concluded it as I don't want to say, well, yeah, maybe poor training or lack of memory of the training that was going on there? I know it happened so fast, and so I know it's instinct and I know it's adrenaline and all that, but what was your kind of conclusive takeaway?
There's a lot of factors involved in that shooting, as are on all these shootings that we see on TV, and I'm often asked by the media to come on and talk about them, and I did go on and talk about the specific one. And some of the things, I feel really bad about saying negative things about both the deceased individual and the officer who lost their job, but I got to say what it is. They get this information after a routine motor vehicle stop, not for a air freshener. That's only what he said to his mom on the phone. The actual reason was for an expired license plate, which is a legitimate stop. During the stop, they then find out that he has an active warrant for his arrest for pointing a gun in a woman's face during a theft of $800. So that's aggravated assault, armed robbery, and illegal possession of a firearm. So there's a warrant for that. That warrant doesn't say he's guilty. It just says he has to go to court for it, and he failed to show up for court, so that they issued a warrant. So now the warrant says this is a dangerous, potentially armed offender. They then go up to effect a custodial arrest, which is what you're supposed to do. You know, it's semantics, but a warrant says you shall arrest this person. It doesn't say you might or you could or you should. It actually, a warrant says you are commanded to arrest this person and bring him or her before the court. Those are semantics, but that is what the legal document says. So they have the car door open, the car's running, and they have the male suspect while they're trying to arrest him in that area. And to me, that's the most dangerous area to keep somebody because A, they have the ability to get into that car and flee or use it as a weapon. B, if the weapon's not on somebody, where is it always? Under the seat or somewhere in the car. So my thought would be, I'm going to get this person controlled as soon as possible, away from the danger area, and cuffed as soon as possible with everybody involved in that. And they didn't, unfortunately, do any of those things. So now we're adding the fear that this person could be armed, the fact that they're arresting him in a danger area, and the fact that he is reaching and jumping back in the car. And now we're telling that officer to react under stress, as you brought up earlier, that OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act. She observes him, she orients herself to the threat. She decides she's going to go for a taser. She acted, but she did it under stress with poor training, which set her up for failure. So that's the shortest I can make that answer, unfortunately. But that's my assessment of it, is that had they followed all those steps and done it the way I would train officers, it would have been less likely that she would have had to draw on a taser under that panic when she thinks she's either going to flee or grab a weapon.
That was an excellent response. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, that just kind of gave me the whole scope of the other side of that. First Lady, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I actually have a question about that. The tasers, are they pretty much built the same way? Like, are they, when they pull them, do they have to unlock a safety or what have you in order for it to pull the trigger and for the taser to come out?
No, that's a great question, and that is something I failed to say just now, but I did mention it when I was on NBC. So the firearms that officers use, I'm not aware of any agency that has a manual safety on a firearm. So you pull it out of your holster, you just pull the trigger. You don't have to do anything else to make that gun more functional. It's draw it, pull the trigger. Tasers, you draw it. There is a safety that you do have to manually flip up before you can function it. So that is yet another step that officers are supposed to take to hopefully trigger something in poor choice of words, to hopefully alert part of their brain that, hey, I'm doing something that's wrong. To pull out a gun and pull the trigger without flipping that safety up, hopefully should interrupt that OODA loop, hopefully should interrupt that cycle and cause you to pause. But because the officer is doing under such a panic state where she thought that she was in fear, immediate fear of death or serious bodily injury, we can miss those cues. So the short answer to your question is yes, tasers, all police issued tasers have a manual safety that you have to disengage before it will fire. And almost no law enforcement firearms are equipped with manual safeties that you have to disengage before you fire.
Understood. Thank you.
So I have a question. Do you think that police training should be longer and more extensive so that they can try to encompass all the scenarios that they might come across, you know, maybe dealing with somebody that's having a mental health crisis or, you know, I know there's people that try to do suicide by police, you know, and they really shouldn't, you know, engage them knowing that. So do you think that they should have longer, more extensive training than what it is now?
Absolutely. I don't know that it has to necessarily be longer. It just has to be specific to the changing goals and objectives that our governing bodies want us to handle. Part of one of my jobs is a verbal de-escalation coach. Is I do train officers how to deal with suicide by cop, how to deal with people who are having an emotionally unstable episode, and we do train in that. So, New Jersey, you'd be happy to know, is at the forefront of that. In Governor Murphy's and the Attorney General's policy for use of force, every agency and every officer in the state of New Jersey, by the end of this year, must have verbal de-escalation training. and they're revamping the entire use of force policy the use of force policy is going from 12 pages to over 40 pages, and they're requiring officers to have training in use of force, verbal de-escalation, handling people in crisis, and so forth. So to your point, I think that we're making the training specific to the areas we're seeing. I don't want to necessarily call them players, but the areas that we're seeing the low, there's a phrase when they say it doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, it's a lot of stuff happening at one time. And there's a business phrase for that. I'm not a businessman, that's why I can't remember it. But low frequency, high expectations is kind of what it is. So we're expected to be the first responders when people are in crisis to stabilize that situation, keep that person safe, keep everybody in the affected area safe, not let the situation go bigger and spread. But unfortunately, our mere presence causes people to focus on us and then bring the problem to us a lot of times. I've been there a lot. I've had my gun pointed at people who wanted me to shoot them. And fortunately, we didn't have to do that. Not because I was any better, it's just the situation just worked out. But I've had that happen several times since I got caught. Just happened in Mount Laurel, where somebody was screaming, just kill me, just kill me, just kill me, just kill me, while the officers were arresting him. And fortunately, they were able to take him in custody without anything happening.
Wow, I couldn't imagine that situation. Humble, I'll pass it to you before I do my follow-up.
I'm gonna as far as interactions go with citizens and police officers, there are some people, and I'll speak to the other side of it, that feel they are at a disadvantage automatically whenever they feel interacting with a cop. They feel it's going to go bad. Now that could be from, being told that by people in their life, or what they've seen on TV, being influenced by media and other stimuli. What is it? What can you say in a sense of people? What would you be for steps? Like, say, a person has a traffic stop, or a person interacts with a police officer. What can you speak to as things that they should look to do if they're trying to hopefully have a successful or positive, interaction with a police officer, where it doesn't turn out into what we're seeing? Because we know the data. I'm not going to speak to the data just now, but I want to hear from you in your perspective, through your lens. What could somebody do if they're interacting with a police officer? Say they stop them and say, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" and stuff like that. And when they're being questioned or stopped, or even at a traffic light or anything, a traffic stop, something like that. What are things they can do to hopefully have the safest outcome? We'll just leave it that way.
That's a great question. I get asked that question a lot, and I've done podcasts. I've spoken in front of groups. I've done it in my time to go speak in youth groups about that exact thing. It's how to survive an encounter with law enforcement while still maintaining your life and your dignity. So I always tell people the same thing I do when I go to the airport. The TSA is in charge, whether I want them to or not. They tell me to take my shoe off, I take my shoe off. They tell me to take my belt off and turn around, I take my belt off and turn around. Why? Because I have a goal of being able to get on my flight. So I put my goal up here, and I'll do anything reasonable to get that goal answered. So translating that to what would I tell a motorist or a citizen walking on the street and they're encountered by law enforcement? What's your goal? My goal is to get out of this alive. Okay, so will you do anything reasonable to accomplish that, even if it's stupid, or you think it's stupid or not right? If it's just reasonable, hey, can you stop and talk to me for a second, please? Why are you going to talk to me? The reason I'm talking to you is my name is Sergeant Jones. I'm from the police department and whatever. So first thing is figure out what your goal is. If your goal is to just get through it, then act human, be calm, and comply with what the officer says. And then when the officer is done with that encounter, you can ask, "Officer, am I free to leave at this point?" Okay. And my dad always told me, my mom always told me, my whoever always told me, just to get the officer's name I talked to, may I have your name or badge number? But you notice the tone I'm saying it. So it's about that same tone. Same way my kids, give me some cookies. Good luck with that. Dad, might please get some cookies. You had a better chance of getting the second way, right? So it's just being human, just being calm. And if the officer was doing something wrong, go report it. And if you don't feel like the actual agency will handle it, because people think there's that blue wall of silence, go to another agency, go to the prosecutor's office, go to the attorney general's office. There's more than enough people. Go to the FBI if you have a civil rights violation that you want to report. Okay, you don't have to report it to that local police officer or agency. Okay, I encourage people, if you feel that you were wrong, you can report it to the next level higher, the county prosecutor, the state attorney general office, the FBI. Don't go to the media first. Don't go to media, because the media's not going to get it right. Go to an actual agency and then save that ticket for the media. You always have that in your back pocket, but don't go to them first. Give law enforcement a chance to do it. Okay, and then I always tell people to document what happened. As soon as you're done, I tell everybody, take your phone out, turn it on, record yourself. I was just stopped right here with these people. Officer X came up, he said I was doing this and doing that, and I don't feel that it was right. So I'm just making this as a mental note to record my emotion, my actions, and everything that is around at a fresh time. It helps bolster your story and it makes sure you don't forget anything. So to your point, that motor vehicle stop, that citizen law enforcement encounter, is just be calm, listen to what the officer has to say, and just treat that person with respect, and you'll likely get respect back. If you don't, and it's captured on camera somewhere, let it work itself out in court. Just do like you said. Yes, sir. Okay, sir. My wallet is over here, sir. Do you want me to get my wallet? Okay, I'll get my wallet now. So just ask, and then be sure that you know what the officer is asking you to do, and repeat it back to him. Okay, sir. You want me to get my wallet? My wallet's in my back pocket. You want me to reach for it now? Okay, sir.
Can we talk about that the military encounter with the police at that time? I think it was in Virginia. Can we talk about that while you're on the topic of the motor vehicle stops? And because I feel like that military officer, his tone seemed like very calm, and he seemed like he was doing everything that they were telling him to do in the moment. What do you feel about that encounter, that particular encounter that the military man had with the police?
I was never in the military. I worked with a lot of people who were in the military, and the people that I've spoken with subsequent to that event being posted online that's not necessarily the way I would expect a lieutenant to handle him or herself when they're off duty. He's not supposed to have a weapon in his car. He did have a loaded gun next to him. He's not allowed to have that weapon, on base or not. So I don't know what his demeanor was. It was just interesting to me that he takes his phone and positions his phone right up in there to record the interaction after they pursued him for 1.5 miles with tinted windows in a vehicle. So they had no idea he's African-American, what he is. They have no idea he's wearing a uniform, and they could not see the temporary tag that was inside the darkly tinted window in the rear of that vehicle, which was the reason for the stop. So again, that heightens a little bit of the tension in the police officers. I will say that the lieutenant's tone and demeanor almost seemed like he was trying to bait those officers into reacting, and he won. He got that, at least the one officer who lost his job, he got that officer to react unprofessionally. He won. And when I teach verbal de-escalation, that is almost the exact scenario we use to teach our officers. You're an actor on a stage, and you got to know your lines. If you let somebody bait you into acting unprofessional, and you look at that cop, he was unprofessional. He's got all these pockets on his uniform. He can't figure out which one he wants to go to. He's got his pepper spray, and he's trying to get something else out, and he's fumbling through all of his pockets. Talk about an officer unprofessional, untrained, and maybe would draw the wrong piece of equipment. So that, I think the gentleman and the lieutenant in the vehicle kind of knew what he was doing. I don't think he was scared and worried about getting shot. He was just complying enough, but baiting those officers in, and they failed. The officer failed. You look at the other officer who's younger, he's just kind of standing back like, this is spinning out of control. And there's one other thing. People were saying that officer said, you're about to ride the lightning, right? And they were saying that's a reference to the electric chair, saying that you might die. That officer is carrying a taser. As a taser instructor, ride the lightning, in my mind, clearly means you're about to get tased. So the officer, his verbal commands weren't being successful. When he was going to reach to grab the guy's hand to pull him out, that wasn't going to be successful. He went to pepper spray, which is the next level of force. That wasn't successful. So then he was going to threaten the use of a taser. He said, you're about to ride the lightning. I would never teach my officers to do that. I'm much more professional. Sir, if you don't comply, you're under arrest at this point for resisting. Step out of the vehicle now. If you're not, you will be tased and you may get injured. Sir, is there anything I'd say at this time to get you compliant? I'd like to think so. I'd like to think you'd work with me. And if they say anything other than comply, then we use that force. And it's on video, it's documented. And you look at every one of my motor vehicle stops, every one of my arrests, they all have that exact same fact pattern. So nobody can say that I was treating this person differently than that person. And that's my goal as a law enforcement trainer, is to make it so generic that every video that is played on TV has the officers going, sir, you have the right to do this. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. If you don't step out of the vehicle, you'll be pulled out of the vehicle and you probably get hurt. Can I get you to step out of the vehicle this time, sir? No. Sir, that was your last warning. You're under arrest. We're going to take you out of the vehicle. And everyone will be the same. First off, the media is going to get bored. Second, suspects are going to understand that these cops aren't playing around anymore. They're going to ask me, they're going to tell me, then I'm going to do it.
So I have a follow-up question. I actually just saw it pop on the comments, and I think it's a legitimate question. And then for everybody, once you answer that, I have a follow-up question, which is kind of the elephant in the room. But in terms of the training, it's more from the public's end, and the question is, what is the public supposed to do about those untrained police? The ones that, like the gentleman you said, that may have been looking for Parker, just really didn't know what to do in a situation, didn't go through a lucrative training class like you offer. I know I just saw last week Governor Murphy announced that I believe New Jersey was ranked #1 in terms of police training. And so that leaves us here in the Garden State very privileged, but maybe out in the Midwest or other places, they might not have the budget to do that. Or maybe they don't invest in it as much. But I think that is a fair question coming from the public. What in terms of those untrained badges that are out there, is there stuff done that's that can kind of internally capture that within the police departments and we just don't know about it? Or are they addressed once possibly a body cam footage is viewed, back at the station? How does that typically go?
Well, first off, you can't start fixing a problem by defunding the agency that you're trying to fix. So that's the other elephant in the room, is ridiculous. Let's take money out of the budget, then expect them to somehow train themselves to a higher standard. And like I said earlier, I agree. We should be held to the highest standard, and somebody who fails to meet that standard as an officer, administrator, or chief needs to be trained so they can, or fired. So to your point, what do we do about officers who aren't trained? Is we try to work with our legislature to get the funding to get qualified trainers into that agency. Okay, the government under Barack Obama and his Department of Justice, they did what was called the 20th century policing model, where they came out and talked about de-escalation training. They talked about community policing. They didn't reinvent the wheel. It's stuff a lot of progressive agencies were doing already, but they codified it, but they didn't give anybody any money. So it was hard to actually spend the money to pull the officers off the street, pay them overtime, or pay other officers to staff the street so you can get this good training. And then it has to be repeated. And everybody who I'm seeing on the screen, we all know the difference between go watch this video on biohazards in the workplace once a year because they say we have to do it, as opposed to actually training and having being assessed. So one of the things I like to do is if I train officers in how to do the model car stop, is then we're going to go look at it. We're going to reward them for doing it right, and we're going to do remedial training if they're not doing it right. And if they're continually doing it wrong after all that, then we're going to work to get rid of them. So that's what we can do as the public, is work with our legislators, work with our governing bodies, work with our local officials and say, I want the officers in this department trained with the appropriate less lethal, non-lethal, and verbal de-escalation and crisis intervention techniques. How do we do that? Do we have to find the big company? Can Walmart donate $10,000? Can a local group of businessmen, can a faith-based organization, can somebody help donate money, time, or whatever it can to make it happen? So work for the change, be an agent for the change that we want.
Okay, and that kind of gets to, well, you're right. Well, actually, I'm going to get into the defund, but that that one elephant in the room that I'm talking about, and Corey, you and I have discussed this, but the national movement, and it's been the national movement for quite some time, and it's kind of the marquee that a lot of people are using without substance, and just in my lens, and I can get into that, but is the killing of unarmed African Americans, primarily males. And you know, we've seen that with Dante. We're in the George Floyd trial currently, which, you know, to be honest with you, has me, you know, I hope justice is served. You know, you've heard me say, you know, due process is always, you know, due process is a dual eligibility. The citizen is eligible for due process as well as the officer. And typically, you know, it's the waiting for all the meat and potatoes to come on the table and be served. So you hear all those facts to kind of get a better understanding. And we're really seeing that now in the George Floyd. Unfortunately, everybody is social media reactionary, and we see a video and we go. And I don't care what they say. It doesn't have to be about police. It could be about a chicken sandwich, and they'll go wait in line at Popeyes for an entire week. It's the truth. I'm not saying anything that is a lie. You know what I mean? People might get mad because they reacted to it. That's on you. But that is what's happening. However, that is the elephant in the room. And I know, you know, doing work in the community, there are a lot of great law enforcement officers that I've partnered with personally, you know, to come out. A mutual friend of ours, you know, we just took place in with Barbers Inc. doing a bike giveaway for Christmas. You know what I mean? In Burlington Township and Willingboro and Cinnaminson and Cookstown. So there's a lot of good act. And this is all just people, like, this isn't something that you know, freeholders or, you know, senators are telling us to do. This is people like reaching out to each other on social media. Hey, I work for the government county. You know, hey, you guys want to get together and put this together? I know a guy, you know, he's working, he has barbershops in Walmart, and he wants to come out and give back to the community. And we're getting together behind the scenes and doing these things for community. We're doing the work. I always tell people have the big mouths, but they don't do the work. You know what I mean? We do the work, but that's how we do it. It's sitting, instead of sitting on the couch watching CNN pander to our emotions, we're picking up our phones, you know what I mean, and reaching out to people to see how we can make a difference on the ground level, because we don't want this to spiral out of control. However, you know, there are situations and circumstances that do happen in the community where, you know, an individual may be unarmed, or an individual may, you know, fall victim of a situation or, you know, death by cop that, you know, is unfortunate. And, you know, it gets blasted in headline, not the other homicides. However, you know, because it is a public servant that did it, it does make it, you know, a talking point, and it does make it a significant situation like for us to highlight here. So with all that being said, in terms of, like I said, that other side of the coin, how would you kind of approach a response to that? Like, with everything going on and everything that we're seeing in the media and some truths to it, how do we find that balance mutually as law enforcement and citizens? How do we find that balance of understanding, at least for us to migrate into the gray area, so we can sit down and try to talk and figure out what this side needs to do and what this side needs to do to make the community a whole?
Wow. Well, first off, thanks for everything that you're doing, helping out with law enforcement and helping the underprivileged and doing that. That is huge, and that is where everything does need to start. And people, we all need to remember that, you know, the media tells us that these people are bad, those people are bad, but hopefully people watching this see that there's, you know, several good people here who care and are part of networks of other good people who care and are helping everybody, regardless of, you know, if they're brown or not brown, if they're whatever they are. So to your actual question, I always like to start with numbers, and numbers don't have any feelings attached to them, unfortunately. So when I say these numbers, sometimes people may think I'm minimizing certain ones and inflaming other ones to make a point. I'm just going to say the numbers the way they are. The average amount of African-American males that are shot by police unarmed is around 25 to 30 every year. The average number of white males that are shot unarmed by police is 2 to 3 times that every year. And that doesn't mean that they weren't a threat. It just means that they did not have a weapon at the time that they were shot. Now, there's another number that needs to be reported. Every year, 56,000 police officers are assaulted. Every year, 56,000 police officers are assaulted. Every year, 17,000 police officers are assaulted to the point where they have to go to the hospital. So in every encounter that law enforcement officers go to, there's always at least one gun, and that's the gun that's on my hip. And almost every time an officer is disarmed in a force situation, he is shot with his or her own gun. Almost every time that an officer is successfully disarmed, he is shot with his own gun. So just understand that while we're looking at this, we're looking at 17,000 officers assaulted and injured every year. How many is that every month? So divide that by 12. We're looking at over 1,000 officers injured a month. We're looking at several hundred officers injured every day, and they're not in the media for having shot or killed anybody. So they're still able to, whether it be by other means of force, by other officers or whatever, they're still able to end that encounter without having to use deadly force. So if we look at the statistics that way, the number of times that officers would be able to use deadly force, say that they're being physically assaulted by somebody else and they didn't, speaks volumes. It speaks volumes. But the other factor that's always apparent is the suspect at some point chose to resist or attack the officer. I have yet to see an incident where a suspect didn't resist, try to run, or try to attack an officer where the officer shot that person. I have yet to see a video where that happened. And that's not to say the officer's force may not have been appropriate, but their force, some force was justified. We can talk about and get in the weeds on, this officer of this size and suspect of this size and what have you. We've been talking a little bit about that in George Floyd and the Derek Chauvin trial, because George Floyd was much bigger. I know it's very difficult to try and wrestle somebody who's big, strong, and sweaty. It's almost impossible to do that. So, what the suspect is doing before the force is applied has to be talked about also, but that's a taboo subject in the media. It's a taboo subject, but I talk about it because it's real, and having been a police officer for 27 years, I know how hard it is to try to do that. And I have not met an officer who wanted to wake up and go shoot somebody. I have not met an officer. I know some officers who had to shoot somebody in Camden and Willingboro and my own town where they had to take a life, and none of them was happy about it. It left all of them different when it was done. Some of them have nightmares. Some of them had to retire.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have PTS. So it's not like, yeah, we're high-fiving and all that. If they are high-fiving, it's because, oh my God, I can't believe I survived that. But then reality sets in and you realize that you took another human life. So nobody wants to do that. I know that was a long way around, but I hope I got some of your questions.
No, that was perfect. Cheddar, I want to get to you with a question before I have another one of my plethora of questions. Go ahead. And I'm going to be good. I'm going to keep Corey short, and hopefully he'll come back and join us again. But go ahead, Cheddar.
So it's interesting with the military guy's case that you said that it seemed like he was trying to bait them, because I actually have noticed that on social media that we all know that people are addicted to going viral now, and they will literally try to do it by any means necessary. So I have been seeing a lot of videos where it seems like people try to egg the officers on or try to make it seem like they're being profiled or they're being unjustly treated so that they can share it and, you know what I mean, and get a reaction from people. Because I just watched one where the officer pulled him over for going under the speed limit, which on the highway can be dangerous. And he didn't even give him a ticket. He, ran his plates, whatever, and he came back with a warning and said, here's a warning, just, next time don't do that. Well, actually, he didn't even tell him what the warning was for. He just kind of threw the paper in his car and was like, all right, bye, have a good day, because he obviously had somewhere else he had to go that was more important. But then the guy, he's filming himself and he's like, what was this warning for? What did I do wrong? And he gets out the car to go, pursue the officer and keep badgering him about what the warning was for, when he didn't give you a ticket. He gave you a warning. He told you go have a nice day. And here you are still egging him on. You know what I mean? And I've been seeing that a lot lately where, like I said, people, they want to go viral. And this is a very, very easy way to do it. As soon as you bring up racist cop or what have you, it's everybody shares it without any kind of knowledge or even thinking about it. So are officers aware of that right now? And, and if they're not, do you think that they should be, so that they don't, feed into that? And
that's a great question.
Nothing grinds my gears more than seeing an officer fall victim to that ridiculousness. As I mentioned earlier with my verbal de-escalation training, we're in a fishbowl. We actually have a slide that shows a cop in a fishbowl Everybody's watching. Then we put CNN, YouTube, TikTok, and all the social media things. And everything you do is in 1080p, high definition from your own camera, let alone all the other cameras around. So why on earth would you let yourself act in a non-professional manner? Yeah, they know. We knew after Hands Up, Don't Shoot from Ferguson, even though that was a lie, I was going to calls and interact with people. They would be standing in the parking lot, hands up, don't shoot, hands up, don't shoot. I train officers, hey, take that as a given. We can see their hands. They don't have a weapon. And we throw it back on, oh, thanks for your cooperation. Thank you for making me feel safe by showing me your hands, son. And then move on to what we had to do. And it just took all the wind out of their sails, right? So yeah, they're aware, but officers are still human. They still carry the same fears, and they still have bills to pay, kids doing this, significant others doing that, fear of COVID. We still have the same human qualities that everybody else does, but we're expected to be able to operate in spite of their effect on us, and sometimes we fail. So that's why my training, I feel, is so important, is programming officers to just like water up a duck's back. I understand you seem upset, sir. Is there anything I can do to help this situation? It seems like you're upset, sir, and I would be upset too if I was in your situation. How can we work this out right now? So just whatever somebody says to me, I don't take it personally. I don't know if you could tell on the camera, but I got a lazy eye. I've had lazy eye since I was a little kid. I've had suspects say, "Did you cross that cop? Don't lock me up." I'm like, I just laugh. I'm like, that's the best you can do? Really? Come on, man. Turn around. I go Joe Biden on him. Come on, man. Turn around. You're not going to
can't say that on this platform, Corey. No, just kidding.
Yes, he
kidding. Just kidding. I'll catch hell for that. Just kidding. So Corey, I have a question. A bunch of questions, but hopefully we can do a part two. Well, real quick, I have this written down, and I just want to make sure that we address it because I think it's something that people do daily, which is 911 dispatch. And just, for people to kind of get just a better citizen understanding of 911 calls, possibly during that 911 call, when a body cam, should be activated, when does it turn on, when the officer's driving, things of that nature. Just again, just to kind of give the audience, really, just the people that are watching it, a better understanding of the intricacies that go on as an officer once you get that call and then you're going to the location to where you were dispatched to.
Sure. I'm kind of talk about two things that are happening almost simultaneously, but apart from each other. And as you'll see how they merge together. So as a citizen, when you dial 911 from a landline, it's going to know exactly where you are. As soon as you hit that one, before it even starts ringing, the information is populating on what's called the PSAP, the Public Service something protocol, but the 911 operator dispatcher screen. That 123 Main Street, dial 911. And they're supposed to say 911, where is your emergency? Because they want to confirm where the emergency is. So as a citizen, know your location, know your location, know your location. If you don't know anything about what's going on, know your location. We'll get all the help you need there. We'll determine which button to push, and we'll get you help. Know your location, always. So that's the most important thing I want people to understand from this. So after that happens, the dispatcher will determine what the nature of the emergency is. Do we need police, fire, EMS, or any combination of those things? So they're sending information while they're talking to you. They're pushing information digitally and sometimes by voice to the other dispatchers, the one who sends the police, the fire, and the ambulance. But they're still talking to you to get additional information, and they're feverishly typing that into a computer. So me as a police officer, it pops up on my computer screen, 123 Main Street, call 911, heart attack in progress, CPR started. Ambulance is en route. Well, law enforcement goes to those calls. Now, as soon as I decide I'm going to that call, whether I'm sent by my dispatcher or I hear it in self-dispatch, policy says I'm supposed to activate my body camera. So the body cameras are always recording video on a 30-second loop. And then after 30 seconds, if it doesn't need it, it starts over 30 seconds. Only the video. The officer has to manually activate it to make the audio, but the audio doesn't go back 30 seconds because you're allowed to be sitting in your car talking to your significant other. All right, honey. All right, yeah, I love you. Okay, yeah, bye. And then we don't need that on the call, and it's not really fair to the officer. So then you get done, you double tap your mic, and now it's recording, and it's going to record your response to the call. It's going to record any radio traffic. It's going to record you getting out of the call, and then now these two things are coming together, right? because the 911 phone recorded everything that the caller said, and the body-worn camera records everything that the officer did. And then later, at some point, we'll be able to merge those together to help get a better picture of how the call took place.
Okay.
So is there a time frame from when you get the call from when you have to start your body cam, the video or audio? Is there a policy that indicates like after 3 minutes, or as soon as you get the call, you have 60 seconds to pick up the audio and video on your body cam?
Ideally, it should be when you immediately acknowledge that you're responding to a call. That's the way it's supposed to be. Sometimes officers forget. If I'm driving and I hear an emergency call and I got to quick make a U-turn in traffic or something like that, and I forget to double tap it, and then I'll double tap it once I get to the call and get out, we can understand that periodically. But if I'm 10 minutes into an incident and then my body camera comes on, I violate policy, there's discipline associated with that. There's discipline. Some agencies have integrated systems where the car cameras and body cameras are integrated with the overhead lights. So as soon as you turn on your lights, it automatically starts the audio and video of your camera for you. So whenever you hit those emergency lights, like initiate a car stop or responding code 1 or emergency conditions to a call for service, it's going to do that for you. But the policy says all policies should say, you shall activate audio and video recording upon response to a call.
Does that do if they don't do that? What happens then in terms of concluding the situation between suspect and cop? Like I remember people used to tell you if they don't read you your, I believe it's called the Miranda rights or something. If they don't read your Miranda rights, then the entire arrest is void. And then I heard somebody say, "Yeah, believe that dumb stuff if you want." So you know what I mean. So is that the same as the body cam, where if it doesn't activate, then it kind of voids out certain components of the situation, or what's the truth behind that?
Well, I had the pleasure of being a police officer before we had any cameras, and it was up to the officer's word in court. So I'd raise my right hand and I would swear that everything I said would be true, and I did that for over half of my career. Then we had car cameras where you just see the view from the car, and we wore, just like this, a little microphone that would go about 1,000 feet wireless. So you could hear the interaction, but you could only see from that car. So all DWI arrests and stuff like that, we had to do that recording. We would have to do the balance test in front of it. And if we didn't, that just gave another rock for the defense to throw at us, to chip away at our case. Why didn't they do this? Why didn't that? Officer, if you failed to follow this policy, who's to say you followed all the other policies, right? So it's just something for them to throw at us. And then in 2021, with the amount of scrutiny law enforcement is under now, it almost seems like, well, they didn't record it because they didn't want anybody to see what they did. And it's really hard for me as a law enforcement professional to argue against that and continue to say, well, the officer forgot. There's so much technology out there that makes it so hard for you to forget to activate your body camera. There's so much social media and mainstream media attention to the body camera, the body camera, the body camera. That's almost in the second sentence of any shooting that you see an administrator talking about. And the body camera was not activated, or the body camera was activated. And good agencies are getting that body camera information, going through it and releasing the important part while redacting some other information that could put people at risk immediately. That happened in Pennsylvania twice. Within 24 hours, they released the body camera footage of an officer-involved shooting, and it stopped rioting. It stopped things before it even got started. So to your point, your question, there can be training if the officers aren't doing it. If they're not doing it more often, then it could be discipline. So that's in the policy, and it's in the Attorney General guidelines.
Okay, excellent. So, Corey, we've had you here for an hour. I'm not going to take up too much time. I'm going to go around the panel one more time, see if they have one more question for you, and then I have an ask of you. That isn't interview related, but just to kind of see if we can get you back on. But Just, I'll start with you, and then we can clockwise it around.
So once again, I know people like to go into statistics and numbers and stuff like that. And we understand that what's being portrayed by the media is what's being portrayed by the media. and that the numbers don't necessarily speak to the fact that there is a disproportionate issue or a disproportionate amount of police shooting unarmed black men or unarmed minorities at like a higher rate or anything like that. The numbers don't speak to that. Still, with the outrage that people feel, some people may have different interactions. People may have been, they may have known an uncle or a cousin or a brother who was mistreated by law enforcement. And if you see something like that on TV, along with your own experiences, now that you have that personal evidence, even though that's the personal evidence, you're using that to inform your opinion of how police officers interact with people that look like you. You know, they look like, if a person may be black, maybe a person may be Hispanic, they are going to inform their own opinion of it. Is there a way to change that? Because once people don't really look at data and statistics. Those are things that people that are either in the know or people that are in the field look at. People look to their experiences first. Is there a way to get somebody who's already had negative experiences to feel like they can have faith in law enforcement again if they've already had if their experiences are telling them otherwise?
Good question.
Wow, that's a tough one. I had a negative experience with law enforcement. I was at a skating party and it turned into a giant fight, and the officers showed up, and one of the officers just wantonly just sprayed. It wasn't even pepper spray at the time that I had invented, just mix in the crowd to disperse everybody. And at the time, I was just like, well, I shouldn't have been here. I'm not going to tell anybody, because I lied and told my dad I was at some other location and went there. But that officer violated policy. He used force indiscriminately on minors and then sent us out into the wild. If I were the supervisor and one of my officers did that today, they'd probably be fired and maybe even indicted. But I had a cousin who became a New Jersey State Trooper, and my uncle was a police officer in Philadelphia for 31 years. And they are both very influential in my life and steered me and guided me towards being in law enforcement. It was my choice, but just hearing stories from them and talking to them and so forth, it was still my choice. So, but not only did I have that one negative experience, I didn't determine it to be a racist experience. That was just a scumbag cop who did that, So again, going back to your question, what can people do if they've had negative experiences with law enforcement or anything, would be go reach out to your local law enforcement agency and go ask, can I do a ride along? Can I talk to some of the officers? Can your officers come to my school? Can you come talk to my kids? Can you drive down my street once in a while and play basketball? There's always coffee and donuts, not donuts anymore. We're trying to be health conscious, so coffee and fruit and fruit outside, for you. Things like that, like establish the relationship on your own, because we've had that. On Thanksgiving, we would always bring food on Thanksgiving, but the community would bring so much food to our police station on Thanksgiving that we would turn away, like trays and trays and trays, full turkeys, mashed potatoes, and so forth. And so that I use that to motivate my officers to say, see, this is why you have to be nice to people. This is why you have to treat everybody with dignity and respect, because somebody could be poisoning our food right now. and obviously nobody did. Obviously nobody did. But I hope I answered your question. I just threw a little bit of humor there at the end. But it's go seek out law enforcement and go hear their side.
Ms. Cheddar.
Yes.
You have a follow-up question?
I do, just one. So, I know you said that, there's a lot more deaths with doctors with malpractice and cops being human, just like everyone else is human. Is there anything in the training that, test a person's character? And do you have policies where, maybe you hear them say something in the locker room or, what have you, that's like, I don't know if this person should be out here policing people with the way that they're acting? Because like you said, they're human. I've had cops that, family friends for years, and I've had, cops that were immediately confrontational with me even as a child. So is there anything in the training that really tests their character and their moral compass, and is it like a continuous thing throughout their entire career?
That's a good question. I wish we could do a better job of that. I don't know if you've seen the Tom Cruise movie, The Office of Pre-Crime, where they were able to predict the crimes that people were going to make and take steps to not let it happen. It's hard to do that. Minority Report was an interesting name. Minority Report was the name of the movie. So when we do the hiring process, we do a background investigation. One of the things we do is we talk to that officers, teachers, their neighbors, their parents, their siblings, their employers, and we try to find things like that. We scour their social media. We want to see if they're flashing gang signs or they're putting swastikas on there or anything in between. You know, if they're running out woman after woman after woman after woman, all the different things that could cause issues or cause concern or lead us, you know, we want to make sure that you're upstanding and good character. So we try to do all that in the hiring process. I used to do background investigations for new police officers. Then when we send them to the police academy, the reason that you see the police academy and boot camp and all that, you see the people screaming in their face and making them uncomfortable. We want to see how they're going to react. If you can't take somebody, you know, yelling in your face and you know that they can't hit you, you're certainly not going to be able to take a real actual citizen screaming at you and calling you names on the street just because they want to blow off steam. Right. So we try to do all those different things to find out where people's breaking points are to ensure that they're of good character. But you know, that's also not something that a lot of people wear in their T-shirt. If people feel bad about race X or ethnicity W, they may not have it on a T-shirt or on a tattoo, right. And it may come out very subtly. So it's really hard to police that type of just perverse belief system that we're finding some officers have. You know, they're storming the Capitol and being part of the Proud Boys and some ridiculous things. You know, it's embarrassing to me. It turns my stomach, and they should all be fired. But how do we find that? By good supervision, by paying attention to what the officers are doing, reviewing those body cameras, especially arrests where there was force used, and listening to what they're saying, listening and breaking down everything that they're saying, because stuff slips out under stress. I think of the last argument you were in with a significant other, somebody, and we've all said something at some point in our adult life, like, man, I wish I could get that back. Stuff slips out under stress. So paying attention to what those officers are saying when they're under stress. So that body camera, when you're driving to that call and you're capturing that audio, we've heard officers say some really interesting words about motorists that weren't cooperating. It's just interesting things, you know. All right, but that also gets played in court. You know, I mean, we've all said that, right? We've all been trying to get home and somebody just is not cooperating in traffic and we thought it or said it. But again, we're held to a higher standard.
Thank you.
Excellent answer. First Lady?
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for coming on today, and I'm hoping for a part 2 on this. I have more questions then.
So Corey, first and foremost, just in the comments, David DeShields told me to tell you hello. He's following along and he's watching. He told me, yeah, he said tell Corey said hello. Secondly, I want to thank you for your service, and for, you know, you're retired sergeant, so you know you've put a body of work together, serving the community, protecting and serving the community. At the end of the day, you know, people are going to react the way that they're going to react, and then you have some real ones that can just identify, you know, the good people from the bad people. You know what I mean, in the world, and that's essentially such is life. You know, you have experiences with good people, you have experiences with assholes, and that could be at McDonald's taking an order, that can be possibly getting pulled over by law enforcement, that could be getting on an airplane and dealing with the flight attendant. Okay, that's just my experience in life. Half of my life has been lived, so I feel qualified enough to say that. But I also feel I thank you. I thank our mutual friend that was able to connect us. So I thank you for your service. I thank him for his service. And I do have a quick question you can answer, and then an ask. My ask would be, could you come back soon, you know, and do a part 2? However, we do have a lot of people watching. We do have a lot of people that are going to watch this. So I was thinking, I'm sure, you know, we, like I said, you know, we have people that are, you know, emotionally heightened with this issue out here. And so I was going to, you know, offer the audience, you know, an email. They can email us questions and we would read you their questions online, and then you could respond to some of their questions, because I'm sure we didn't touch on a lot of stuff that a lot of the viewers probably wanted to ask. And I really, that's really the purpose of the show, is to kind of build on what everybody's thinking, to try to come to a common ground. That would be my ask of you, to come back and, we can survey the audience for maybe 2 weeks, try to compile some good questions with substance. That's key, with substance, not hate, but some good questions with substance, and then read them to you, then have you answer them. Is that something you can do for us?
For sure, 100%.
Thank you so much. I also want to, and we can do that next episode. I also want to get into some of the community work. I hear, Corey, I hear you talking about a lot of training that you have offered to other officers, right? And I hear a lot of trainings that are going on at different departments. You know what I mean? And how they deal with use of force and things of that nature. So I hear a lot of the curriculum and academics to make a better officer or to mold a better department. And I love that. I think those same trainings need to happen in the community. But as I keep using the word, on the other side of that coin, I think that people such as myself and everybody on the panel and everybody that I talk to, like when we do the bike giveaway and things like that, I think we need to set up mobile, areas in the community where we are bringing a person like yourself in to come in and do training and interaction with members of the community on basic 101s. When you get pulled over, this is what resisting arrest means. This is what resisting arrest means. This is, even a fingernail could be an assault on an officer if he wants it to be that way, because they are jurisdicted under the law, to pursue that charge. And you are jurisdicted under the law to abide by those rules and that understanding. The problem is it's not being taught anymore in the community. Much like Just said and other members of the panel, when I was growing up, when I got my keys, when I got my driver's license, the first conversation I had wasn't, don't be speeding in my car. It was if you get pulled up it was, first of all, don't have a bunch of people in your car. In the car driving around 17 years old, because that's understood. And here's the thing. People are going to be, well, that shouldn't be a problem. Whatever. I'm going to tell my son the same thing. He gets his license in 3 years. So he's getting the same speech. But it was also, this is how you act when you get pulled over by the police. You put your hands on the wheel, 10 and 2, hands on the wheel. Hello, officer. Ask why I'm being stopped. Would you like my license and registrations? I'm reaching over into the glove box. And yes, in truth, because of, I think, the generation that my mom migrated out of, it was because, yes, you are a black man driving a car, and you never know. I'm aware of the generation that she came out. I mean, that was the Rizzo days, okay? But also it was also the, I'm going to use her terms. You catch more flies with honey than you do shit. So, and that was, what I mean? If you talk polite, you have a civil conversation with them, you find out what's going on. It could be something where, your tail light is out. You have to get it, because you could have a good cop here, but you might go 3 towns over and it might not be the same situation. You know what I mean? So always take advantage of the situations. Always be decent. Always be civil. You know what I mean? And you and I have talked. I said, I probably been pulled over 10 times. 8 of the 10 were good. The other 2, you know what I mean? It was, I left there. It ruined my day. You know what I mean? But I don't need to discuss those experiences. I'd rather look at the 80% than the 20%, right? Because once again, such is life. But I would like to get into a conversation along with that when you come back to get into what we can start doing actively in the communities, especially where a lot of these situations are transpiring. We know George Floyd. Look. Corey, I talk frank in the hood. I want to get in the hood, and I want to, see if we can start setting up. They're so quick to do a mobile COVID testing centers in the community, and they'll grant funding for that. They'll grant funding for injection sites for heroin addicts and put that in the heart of the city. Why can't they grant funding for sites that can come in and help better relations between the police and the community? No, they won't do that. So they won't do it. Then we'll collectively get together and figure out how we can volunteer our time, with other businesses and people such as yourself within the community that can volunteer our time and use whatever budgets we have to get out there and to spread the message. And that's what I'm about. And I know
like the sound of that.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to the part 2, Corey. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll do this real quick. I'll let you give a quick plug for your safety man. I don't want everybody, just in case there's a viewer that may want to check you out, and I put the website at the bottom.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. The questions in the conversation were very insightful for me. Everybody definitely made me have to think. Normally I'm just, here's my answer, and a couple of times you saw me like, ooh, those are tough questions, but those are the conversations we need to have. So I do thank you for that. And when we do the part 2, there's nothing off the table. I speak about where law enforcement needs to improve and where I think law enforcement is doing a good job. And also, like you alluded to, I do put a lot of expectations on the community and to teach ourselves how we need to react in an emergency or deal with law enforcement. And so it's safetyman.co, it's Safety Man Consulting. Any crisis management situation that you have, whether it be learning to shoot your gun or training your employees and team members how to handle an emergency, contact me. I make a specific plan for you based on your rules and regulations, your goals and objectives, and your concerns to make sure that you're going to be safe. Safetyman.co. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Sergeant Corey Jones, we thank you so much for coming.
Awesome. Thank
you.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless. So that was a great show, guys. I think it was
live.
right. I think it was. Yeah, we're live.
Okay.
I think it was a very good perspective of the other side of the coin.
It was
Yes.
very insightful. Yeah.
So real quick,
We got a lot of good feedback too in the comments.
We did. We got a lot of good feedback in the comments, and
we appreciate y'all for tuning in always.
Absolutely. A lot of good feedback, and then we got a lot of people that are still in the emotions, but that's great. Those are the questions we want.
Yeah.
Those are the questions we want to be able to ask Sergeant Jones when he comes back. And so next time, just we can field questions. We can while we're out and about during the day, we can pull questions from our peers and design that for Mr. Jones as well. So Cheddar, I'll start with you. We can go to First Lady, down to me, and then we'll close it out with Justin. That'll be it. Any
thank everybody for tuning in yet again. This was a super great show. I loved him being on. Definitely learned some things I didn't know about police training. And check out my cheesecakes.
I need you to put the link on the page more. I need to see the link on the page more, on the build page, and start doing that. I be sharing it in my story all the time.
Yeah, I know, all the time. Thank you so much.
Right, I got you. But start getting it on the page more, so you can because you're getting great. Everybody that I've referred you to, like, they calling me up. I'm like, yeah, you got our number now. You handle it. First Lady.
I know, Cheddar, I need to order one of your cheesecakes. I'm definitely gonna get on that soon. But I appreciate his perspective on everything that we spoke about, and I'm ready to get in with the the other side too, and let them have their voice also. So that'll be for part 2, and just want to thank everybody for tuning in again. And it's a tea thing. I make t-shirts and hoodies. That's my plug.
Oh, no, you got another plug. May 3rd. Come on now.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That big ass burger you was eating last night.
I'm slipping.
My bad. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, I forgot. May 3rd, our first book club build, Psychodike, by CJ Gardner, author, will be on May 3rd. So tune in for that, please. Get it on Amazon, Psychodike. That's my book.
Absolutely, I cannot wait to go over there. But actually, I think it got delivered today, so I'm gonna be reading it. So this is my takeaway. It was a great show. I like I said, there's a lot of stuff that I and we all collectively do behind the scenes. So this was very important to me because I saw and I see what the mainstream media is doing. Anytime you're in the middle of a global lockdown pandemic, and they're encouraging people to go out and march and riot the way that they did after George Floyd, and just shut it back down after they got their, after they got their, like, it was, I really saw the media's influence. And what people need to understand is, the media used to be a source of information. whether, and it was just what a person was reporting on. You know, you can have a shooting at, you know, JoJo's laundromat, you know what I mean? And you hear about the shooting, you may hear about the suspect and how old the victim is, but then there's so much more takeaways from that has to go on. You know what I mean? There's the trial, was the person, did they have the right person? You know, like there's so much, but we're so reactionary. And, you know, this was actually told to me today. So I'm gonna acknowledge the copyright on that to my homie. But you know, the media now has become the teacher, has become everybody's teacher. So the media tells you need a shot because this, then you go get it. You don't do your research. And the media tells you, you know, this, you don't do your research. This is what it is. Now you're talking about the water cooler at work. And one thing that people need to understand is the media is full of their opinions. CNN has their opinion. Fox has their opinion. MSNBC has no logical opinion at all. Sorry, but I'll just throw that out there. But you know what I mean? But they have their opinion, and they become your teacher. They become the person holding your curriculum as to what you're learning about COVID, as to what you're learning about police shootings, as to what you're learning about any damn thing. The media, you rely so much on the media that they become your teacher. And here's the thing that as I said, my buddy reminded me of a teacher. You know, their significant other is a health teacher, and they have to go out and at a school and they have to discuss birth control, abortion, things of that nature that you talk about in the health class. Now, they have to give you all the options. They keep it neutral. They have to tell you this is what it is. They give you all the facts. The students don't know their personal position on, let's say, abortion. Their personal position on, say, what age should a person use contraceptives. They don't know that because they're only there to give out the facts. This is the curriculum. This is the facts about abortion. This is the facts about birth control. These are the facts. The teacher doesn't go into their personal opinion of whether they're pro-life or not, because that's not their job. Their job is to deliver it to the classroom, right? That is how your media should be. The media should be giving you a situation or a subject, giving you all the facts on it, explaining this side of the facts and this side of the facts, and leaving it at that. They're not doing that anymore. They are a panel of opinions, period. And if you watch one particular network, then you are now induced every day under the hypnosis of their opinions, period. Now, what you're not inserting in is the fact that they're also a business. They exist. The legs on that table is held up by ratings, period. And their ratings have been tanked since my president left. So they're looking at whatever. It's not like it's a secret now. So
you know what I mean? Around here somewhere.
Yeah, I do. But you know what I mean? So that's what it is. And they need ratings. And you just had the guy on CNN that just got aired out, you know what I mean, on camera for saying fear sells. Fear sells. Pains that, you know, that's what it is that you're doing. And so our goal bringing Sergeant Jones on here was to give you that other side of the coin, not to so much to say the fight is wrong, the cause is wrong. It's to give you the other side of that perspective, to speak to the Kim Potter situation where he said it's poor training. She made a mistake, horrible mistake. You know what I mean? About the First Lady, as you said, the Army vet in Virginia, you know, we hear about how we saw him pop the camera up. We hear about how he was communicating with the officer, but not one time in the media did I know that his ass was being chased 1.5 miles with lights and sirens on. And so you wonder why once they stopped the car guy, and he said, I wanted to get in a well-lit place. A mile and a half from
could be true though. Could be true. A mile and a half in Virginia. Where at though? It's listen.
That's fine.
You roll through Virginia.
That's fine, but you know what? That hurts his case more than it helps because he's military and he knows to follow orders. And if you're a lights and sirens, that's a goddamn order. Period. That's an order. Pull your ass.
And I didn't know anything about him having the gun in the seat because, of course, they're not going to say that.
Right. And
well, he could have been afraid too. Come on, like give him something. You want to hear both sides. You got to hear both sides. He could have been afraid for himself also. He knew he had the gun. He could have been afraid. He could have died right then and there. I'm not saying that he was right, but it's two sides to that too.
There's definitely two sides to that. Yeah. You know, my point is, you know, I'm not dismissing what you're saying. You know what I mean? I should never lead with that's my point because my point is, no, I was always told that never lead with my point is because it makes it seem like you dismissing somebody else. But the goal that I'm trying to, to communicate with the audience is the media never told us he was being followed for 1.5 miles with lights and sirens.
True.
So now, as soon as I saw that, I immediately hit up my buddy who's a cop, and I told him, I said, this is the. And he said, 1.5 miles, lights and siren. Once you're stopped, that's out the car, guns drawn, because now you're I forgot the word he said, but now you're fleeing. You know what I mean? Now you're fleeing. Now you're eluding. What's it called? Oh damn! I hope he's watching. He can text me right now because I'm getting it wrong. But that's what it is. And so by the time their protocol is by the time you pull over after lights and siren 1.5 miles, you get out. My cop car door is open. I'm bucked behind the door and my guns are drawn because we don't know what that is. We don't know what's going on. He didn't have a visible license plate. He had a temp tag. So he had the paper tag and they couldn't see it. So it's not like they could run the plate, see his name. And well, they could run his plate and see he's black. No, they couldn't because they couldn't make out. So right now they don't know who's behind the wheel. You know what I mean? And so when I get that, I understand it. Now, if you watch the full video, you kind of saw what happened at the end. I felt as though they communicated with him. I do think that one cop was an ass.
He definitely was.
He definitely was an ass. But I saw I think it was the younger cop or whatever.
He was baited. He was out of control.
Who was that? The big cop?
Yeah. Even if the scenario was true that he seemed like the cop seemed like he was being baited. Even if he was being baited, he was out of control. So we're talking the cop that we're talking about that was acting a little irate. So he was in the military too. Oh.
But his rank was beneath the guy that was pulled over. So I've talked to somebody that was in the military and he said, could have played a little envy there. They're not dismissing it. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there that we can bring to the table. But I tell you what, my point is, and your point is, and all of our point is, it's not a one-sided conversation. It's he could have been scared for his life. Facts, because it's happened before and we've seen it. Mm-hmm. However, 1.5 miles, lights and siren, and you just keeping it pushing. What in the blue hell do you think is going to happen to you? And so, it's important to do what it is that we're doing right here. Where we bring an expert on here and we're talking to them. People can do that at home. They can go to their police station. Look, I have questions. Like my kids are talking about this thing that's going viral on social media, and they're upset and they're killing black people everywhere. That's what's going on. That's what they're saying now. It's like, oh, really? But your government's doing it more than they are. The food's doing it more than they are. But you know what I mean. But they're doing this. But if you're a concerned parent, then you reach out and go to your police station. Hey, can you send an officer to the house just to talk, give us a little bit of understanding of what did we see? And we'll have conversations like this where we understand what's going on, where we may understand the criminal background of certain people. If they're a dangerous criminal, you know what they could be up against. So I think this is going to be great. I'm going to be polling people all week. We will be polling people all week to try to generate some questions. And bring Sergeant Jones back on and have them read your questions out loud online and have him answer your questions. So ask those difficult questions, from the community.
Send them on Messenger.
Send them on Messenger. I'll throw the email up on my page, so you can also send them there. You can send them to me on Messenger. But I'll toss it over to Humble, and great show, guys.
It was a great show. Once again, I want to say I appreciate Sergeant Corey Jones for coming on and speaking with us, giving us an opposite side of the coin, a view from his lens, and basically explaining to us not only the things that could be done better on the side of the civilians or citizens, but that the officers do wrong because of poor training. I think poor training is a really major issue into why we see so many negative police encounters. Even though there's negative police encounters that are blown out of proportion on a media scale. That's a whole nother story for another show. Mm-hmm. You see why it happens that way. And I would like to tell people that there are reasons for that. There's legislation that can be put in place. You can put in legislation by getting involved in your community, getting involved in people that are involved in government in your community, no matter who it is. If you have the mayor of a town, if you have somebody that you can speak to Anybody that's at the state and local level, you can speak to see how that can be better and work on it. It is a thing you can do as an individual. Now, to summarize most of what we went through tonight, I would like people to understand that we are not saying that all cops are good or all cops are bad. We are saying that there is a situation when police are called to a scene for whatever it is. Let's say they get called. If you wanted it to not escalate, you have the opportunity to do that before cops are called. Once cops are called, they are the authority on the scene, whether you like it or not. They're the people with the badge. They're the people that have the say so, the end all be all. And at that moment, it's up to them. So all you have to do is, you don't have to like what they have to say. You don't have to like the way they're going to handle it. But once they get there, usually you follow what they have to say, whatever it is that they decide to do. You walk with it. You fight it out. You go through your due process, and you let the system let things take the course. But in that moment, they're the authority on the scene. Respect the person there and give them their respect. They are public servants. Just respect them to be able to do their job. You wouldn't want somebody to come into you at your job telling you how to do your job. Don't tell them how to do theirs. That's the most basic way I can say it, if we can look at it that way. Ultimately, there has to be a bridge built between citizens and law enforcement within these different communities throughout the country. That has to happen with more stuff that happens at the state and local level. That can happen if you, once again, take the approach to go in. You can do the smallest thing by just going to a police station and saying, I'd like to have somebody come to the house to talk to my kids about how to interact with police officers, what they should do, and things of that. They don't know how to interact with police officers. This would be a way for them to make it a situation where they can talk freely, ask questions to the actual police officer, talk to somebody that's in the force, and see if they can hear their side of the story. So that's a way it can work out. Ultimately, it's a conversation that's never ending, ever growing, and ever expanding, because the more information you have, the better informed decisions you can make. And I don't think the conversation stops with just one person or one group of people. Conversation keeps getting broader until everybody's voice is heard. So that's what we'll do in part 2. As for tonight, thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for everybody for joining in the comment section. And until next time, have a good night.
Humble.
Good
Hey, Bree.
Hey, girl.
Yeah, hi to the people, Bree.
Bree, it's 10 o'clock.
Don't be questioning my parenting, all right?
Um,
Nah.
Thank y'all for tuning in on the bill, man. We'll see y'all next week.